All right, so I'm speaking today with John Dietrich. And John, I met on Twitter. And I think I'm just going to do a quick question here. Because we were just talking about what you do for work, and I said, let's record this. Let's actually start the recording now. All right, so you were up all night building a website. What were you building?
Yes, so I was building a website for a new venture. It's called Under the Hard Hat. So my day job is with a company called Smart Build, and we do SaaS software for construction management. So for all the people who love construction, it handles things like RFIs, site reports, safety reports, all of your planning, budgeting, accounting, all that kind of stuff. It was a tool built internally, funnily enough, for a company in Canada. And then the guy who built it was like, hey, this works really well for us. Could probably sell this to other people. So anyways, up till like 1:30 last night working on this Under the Hard Hat piece, which is the idea is it's going to be like the place to go for the actual construction workers in the field. So the product, focuses more on like the project manager level people. And then this is for all the actual construction workers. So, faithful WordPress site
Nice.
needs to be run by people who are not necessarily big fans of technology. So trying to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
But it's funny, man. This is like the third redo I've done of it because, as always, lots of fun design choices and changes. But
yeah, but you actually are not primarily a programmer, right?
That is true.
So
yes.
I know you from Twitter as primarily posting about stuff involving marketing and, general sort of htmx interest, I would say. Like this, and this is strictly from, my observations. But I saw that you have the book Hypermedia Systems.
I do, yes.
And I've seen you post on htmx stuff many times. So, but primarily you are a marketer with them. Oh, nice. There's the Hypermedia System book. I'm actually using that book right now to prop up my laptop so it's a little higher.
Nice.
So that the microphone doesn't completely cover my face.
I know. I'm realizing that.
Many uses.
Like ducking down. I got to keep that back straight.
Yep.
Yes. No. That is a very apt description. I am definitely a person who wholeheartily embraced the htmx mentality of being the CEO, but barely touching htmx. So
nice. I've got aspirational htmx programmer.
Exactly. I've got my CEO htmx hoodie. I think I might have put it on my LinkedIn, not sure yet, but I think I've actually, the only thing I've done with it so far is the random color tutorial, the one that like changes the text that just like cycles through if you go through any of the examples. So
yeah,
that's about as deep as I've gotten into the actual coding side of HTMX. So far, exactly. But I do, I how did you come across HTMX? Like, what was your introduction? Was it just on Twitter or?
Yeah. So actually, I would probably say it was probably Grug Brain. I don't know if you read that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I came across that and like sent it to like 3 people I used to work with. Because this was my experience working at a couple different companies, and I don't know, like just that's just like I think anything that's funny kind of hits me in a different way. So I was like, okay, this is like all true, but also extremely funny, which like is hard to beat. So then I was like, okay, so like what else is this? This mentality of programming, this mentality of building stuff and this sort of the ideas that are here, actually, I think are really solid. So like what else goes along with this? And then, it's like, oh, okay, this guy also created like a web framework or something like a framework, a library. And so I just kind of looked into
library
it.
Of
and,
peace, right?
Yep. Looked into it and it's like, it tends to match my, in ways that I didn't even realize before I sort of started using it. It matches the way that I sort of think about web development in general. And I've been developing on the web for like 20 some years now. So,
just a little bit of experience.
Yeah.
No, it's funny that you say that, because like the Hypermedia book. So I came across it just completely from Twitter. Like I see horses with laser eyes. I pay attention to what they're saying. Like I'm gonna just at least pay a little bit of attention.
It's not the first time.
Yes, exactly. And I thought it was funny, and then the first thing I did was I went and started reading the like online version of the Hypermedia book, and I just remember within like the first few pages when it was just kind of reestablishing and rediscussing like what the internet is, like how it was made to operate, and it just made so much sense. Like it just hit me of like, oh yeah, like this is really fascinating. And then after that, then you start getting into all the memes, and then you become CEO, and it just is like you just start paying attention to it. And I've been really fascinated with watching it, from a marketing perspective of just what seemed like following kind of just, this random guy in Montana has like very quickly turned into a major discussion point on Twitter, it feels like, of the value of hypermedia and where this can go. And, it's been really impressive to watch that transition happen. I think when we were first talking a little bit about, it seems like overnight success, but obviously started with Intercooler and has been around for a long time. But just this trajectory of watching htmx take over has just been fascinating from a side of, A, the technology is interesting, and then B, just from the side of like, it's legitimately just memeing it into the zeitgeist. It's super impressive when people can pull that off. So,
yeah. I mean, so one of the reasons I kind of wanted to like talk to you about some of this stuff is I think, I have my own perspective on just like web development in general, but also on sort of HTMX and building stuff that is very much focused on the developer side of it. And I think, one of the things that I wish I understood more was the marketing side of everything. And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you maybe are in the reverse of that situation. You have a lot of marketing experience, and I mean, you're already building stuff, so you're already a developer. But it sounds like you've built, so I'll just give a little background too. Like your dev chops, you have also built an online game, which is Lemonade Stand, right? That's the right name?
Yes, that's the one. That was kind of the first thing I ever built where programming started to make sense to me. You change a number, and then there's a very visual representation of that change, and immediately was a huge benefit for someone like me. It's just to be able to just do it through trial and error and guessing, and maybe even if I don't fully understand like why it was working on as like a in a mathematics capacity, I could just be like, okay, well, if I change this number to a 2, oh, now he flies off the screen. Okay, that's no good. What about if I try a 1? And then, and you can just keep kind of tinkering, but you get that immediate feedback. And that was, it was huge for me. And just being like, oh, I think I can do this. Like, I think and then it leads down to a whole bunch of different paths of how, like you said, even just in the game, you can go down different rabbit holes. Now it's like, oh, now I want to learn more about, vectors and what does that actually mean? And you just start digging into it more and more. So game development was vital for me in my, even just in my self-confidence of like, oh, I think I could actually like program some things. And, now I'm learning about like pointers in C, and it's like, what? What are these things? So I think you can do the same thing with marketing. If you find something interesting, then you get to dig into it, and you just start investigating why it works and what is interesting about it to you.
Yeah, so this was, I sort of asked you ahead of time, or we sort of talked ahead of time about, one possibility for talking today is like we each bring a particular topic to kind of like, one topic to talk about. So I don't know if you've got something in mind or not yet. If you do, that's good. But I also, so yeah. What do you think?
I did not.
Okay. So this is good.
And as I mentioned to you earlier, I got very anxious about doing this, and for some silly reason, and I just could not make a decision on what to do.
So this works out nicely because what I am thinking for my version of the topic is, because we're sort of coming at it from these different sides, but I think that I want to know more about your side, and I think you want to know more about my side. So
Definitely.
My concept for a topic is that I will ask you something about marketing, and then you ask me something about, web development in general. So you pick my brain about web development, and I'll pick your brain about marketing.
I love
Does that sound good? Okay.
Yes,
so
that sounds great.
All right, I'll go first. So marketing.
What is it?
It's like, and I mean this in like, what you just said is like literally what I am trying to figure out. So like, I have my concept. I have my own business. So like at some level, of course, I understand like, but my version of marketing has been, I did a little bit of cold outreach where I knew who my customers were and I tried to call them, and like, that was so depressing. And I actually got people mad at me. And like, I was like, okay, well, this is not working, because like, I can't have my small pool of potential customers just like angry at me for disturbing them. Like, this is bad. So, okay. So my question, like, maybe I want to start, what is marketing is the big question, but like, what do you actually, like, what do you do all day when you're, not developing, not when you're doing the marketing part of your role?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great question. And the interesting thing about marketing, and also the worst thing about marketing, is that it really touches every single part of a business. Like, people use marketing in two different ways. One is the people who are actually in the industry and focus on what they're trying to accomplish, as far as the main goal is bringing in customers and driving revenue, right? At the end of the day, if you're not focused on that, then you're just really trying to win awards and, make yourself feel good. There's no point in doing that. And then there's the other thing where people just go like, I don't know what it is, like, I'll just throw it under marketing. So, in as an example, in my current role, I am a part of basically every department's discussions about what's going on, because there is a marketing role to be had in every area. So from a development side, my marketing situation is usually like, what's coming down the pipeline? What features are we working on that we need to be discussing with our customers? And then on the flip side, I've been talking to customers about how they're using the platform, and I'm realizing that they really need this. Is this something we can add to the roadmap? Then I go and have conversations with the sales team who go, hey, we want to talk to this group of customers. Can you pull the data on, this association, and how do we, who do we want to talk to, and building relationships with membership directors so that we can get in front of more of the actual members.
Okay, wait.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So okay. So I'm already like, I want to make sure I'm following. So, but there is already a separate. So your company is on the larger side, it sounds like, first of all.
You know what? We're a small team, but we are in a very strong growth period. So there's a lot of focus on different things right now.
So you do have a sales team that you consider to be separate from the marketing team. So what's that distinction? Just Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be lots of overlap, but the main distinction is that the sales team is the one actually doing the calls, and they're following up when we get them to a certain stage. So on the marketing side of it, our goal is to handle that top of funnel. So attract as many potential customers as we can, and filter them through what we've decided is important and what we think makes a good customer, and then turn them over to sales to actually, get them involved, do the demos, sign them up as part of to get them into the ecosystem. So, a lot of times, sales and marketing are combined under one department. And we work very closely together, obviously. But our main goal, what we look to do on the marketing side of it is to identify where those people are, get engaged with the people, the potential customers that we want to talk to, and then the last step before we kind of hand them off is start to qualify them to be like, okay, yeah, these guys actually seem interested. Sales, it's time for you to get in and actually discuss do the demos and close them as a new customer.
Okay, so interesting. So I feel like I have been thinking of the market, like when I think of my own company and my own sort of role in this and like where I think I've been thinking of marketing as really it's the sales part that I've been doing at some level is like, that's when I do the demo and that's when, we sort of, so that wouldn't necessarily, the marketing part would usually come before that through some other form of communication. Now, is that like, you're talking about like finding them where they are. So that's like in-person, forums, email, all of the above?
All of the above, yeah. So, and again, everyone kind of can handle this differently, but in our side, we look at like trade shows as a marketing arm. And so like trade shows is something that marketing team handles with the intent of warming up all those leads, finding the right people. So picking the trade shows that we're going to and figuring out the reasons why we think they're useful. And then, gathering the lead lists and starting to build those conversations. And then same thing with part of our team goes through and spends lots of time, scouring things like Reddit and social media and like finding what people are talking about. There are, interestingly enough, some construction management, like project software subreddits who are talking about like, hey, this software stinks. And then we go, hey, have you checked this out? And like get involved in those conversations. So, we kind of handle, it's an interesting piece because we handle that top of funnel part, but then also once the sales have closed and it gets passed off to support, that's another part where marketing gets the touches in because now we've got customers that we want to discuss, build case studies about, figure out what they like about the platform, what they don't like about the platform, try and turn them into people who are going to spread the word about us because they just think what we're doing is so great. So that's why like marketing is such a weird space because I always in my mind split it up into kind of, there's a couple different areas. So like marketing is in my mind has always been more of like the data side of things, like gathering data, figuring out who you want to talk to, identifying your audience. Then there's the like advertising and branding side of things, which is more the crafting the message for that audience that you've identified and putting out the materials and the ads and the content that speaks to those actual potential customers. And then the last side of it is then there's the support side is like, okay, now that you have customers, how are you engaging with them and keeping them interested in your brand and all of that kind of stuff. So marketing to me has always been about, and this is probably influenced heavily because of the fact that I've focused most of my career on digital marketing, is like, how do we gather the right data so we know where the people that we want to talk to are and what they're talking about and what message makes sense so that we can meet them there.
So, okay. So the data part I get, like, as just someone who works with data all the time and I can research stuff and I'm used to online research and sort of going with stuff. I think the part that you're missing from your description of these three sides, the data collection, what was it? The second one,
the messaging, the actual,
the messaging, and then the support.
Yep.
But nowhere in there did you mention like you are also the first face, right? The first interaction. So it's also sort of a personal, you have to be on, like if you go to it, you're the one going to the trade show, right? Not the sales team.
Yeah. So for our specific one, it's usually sometimes it's myself and like the founder and a sales team member. Sometimes it's just me and sales. Depends on the size of the event and what the purpose is. So like that's where kind of the data gathering side comes in, because there are events that make sense where you might be able to close some deals right then and there. And then there are lots of events where it's just like, we just need to be there to talk about what we do and meet the right people. And so there's, an interesting thing with like an htmx, for example, like it's Carson, right? Like it is him, and he does everything. And when you have like a smaller business, where it's very much on the founder who's in charge of mostly everything else, to me, that's always been, if you have a founder who understands social media, there is no marketing department that can beat somebody who is active and engaged on social media, and knows how to play that game, because that's, people love hearing from the person who runs the organization. It's that personal touch, and if they're good at it, if they're good at, they understand, they're like at the core, what Carson does so well is like he understands what he is, like he's very true to what the message that he's putting out. So it's like it never comes across as somebody pretending to be something. It just comes across as like, this is who I am, this is what I built, I'm here to have some fun on Twitter, and it comes across as genuine, and people pick up on that and they really enjoy it. When you're in a team when you have like a slightly larger organization, it's tougher to replicate that across the different departments. And if you don't have a founder that's like interested in doing it, it's a tough sell. But I think when you're in, like that. No, you really can't. You watch other companies try and force it, and you get cringeworthy posts that everyone makes fun of for being cringeworthy. So, when you're a small business owner and you're the one in charge, you have a really cool opportunity to just be authentically who you are. And if you take that data side of marketing and look at like, where are the people that I want to speak to, and I want to meet them where they are, you can start to find, you can just be who you are in those spaces, and you'll attract the right people. Like it can come very naturally. And it's one of the coolest things that I've enjoyed about anybody who does social media marketing really well. There is that element of authenticity, and it just resonates with people.
Interesting. So, a lot of my stuff is, so I'm just trying to think of like applying this to my world.
Yeah. Well, can I interrupt you and just ask you a question? Like, where do the people you want to talk to, like, where do they hang out? And it might not be online. It might, and that's okay. But that's how you craft the strategy, right? Is first identifying that piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. So the thing about my end, I'll just say, like, I have a couple different projects. The one that I own, fully and am sort of the most invested in, the one that has a part-time employee, is a constituent service database for elected officials. And it's in Massachusetts, where I live. And, I think part of the goal is to make it more than just Massachusetts. But for now, I know who my customers are. I have a list of all the elected officials that are at the State House in Boston, senators, representatives. I know some of their staffers. So the world of that is not, it's small, but it can be good. It's connected. Yeah. And so that's kind of what has driven it so far. I used to work at the State House, so I know the world a little bit. And we have a bunch of clients. And I would say we do almost no marketing right now. And part of it is just because I don't quite know what to do for it.
That's fair.
Yeah. I'll tell you two things we did last year, actually. We've released a whole bunch of features, and we released an app, and I basically did no marketing for any of those. But what we did do is, at the beginning of last year, I had some very nice notebooks with a gold foil imprint of the State House in Massachusetts printed on it. And we went around and you know, the employee, she gave every one of our current clients and their staff one of these little notebooks. And, you know, those costs like worked out to maybe like, I don't know, I want to say like $15 for each one or something like that. So it was like a couple, maybe $1,500 or something total, $2,000. And after that, we saw our biggest increase in users for like a new session. So that was one thing.
So, I mean, that's marketing.
You know, I feel like that was a success. It's hard to sometimes match up like what happened. We also released the app around then, so maybe they found out about the app. The other thing I did was we held an event at near the State House, which was like a luncheon.
If you can hear me, I'm losing you quite a bit right now.
Okay, I can hear you now. I wonder if there's any way to like, you know, do like a audio preference or something like that. We could even turn video off for a minute see if that helps.
Yeah, do you want to try that?
Let's try just because.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's like the most important thing is the audio.
Yeah. All right, let's try. Did I just press that? There. Okay.
There we go.
Can you hear me still?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, let's see if that works, because that would be nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, wait. So what was the last thing you heard?
So the last thing I heard was you had talked about you'd given out the books, and then I had mentioned the last thing I said was, well, that's marketing, and then you were saying something which ended with the app came out around the same time.
Yeah, so it's very hard for me to identify whether that was a success or, you know, those other factors like there always is happening. I released the app within a month of that, and we also, it was a new session, so there was a bunch of new legislators coming in, and we picked up quite a few of them. So whether the books did it, I don't know.
Attribution is like the biggest problem in marketing. It is so challenging, so you are not alone.
Yeah.
This is a really small example of like, you know, you remember those like Mac versus PC ads?
Yep.
You know, most people look back at those and go like, those were hugely successful.
Right.
And they probably were, but what they also don't always think about is guess what device came out right around the time those ads started coming out.
It wasn't the iPhone, was it?
It was the iPhone.
the mildly popular iPhone.
Yes, exactly. And it's just, you know, it's one of those tough things. And, you know, I'm sure if you talk to the marketing department, they're going to tell you that it was the ads that drove more interest in Apple that helped promote the iPhone. And I bet if you talk to product, they're going to talk about what, you know, it was their stellar new product that drove everything. And they're probably all right. And that is, you know, that is the hard part. And so you are, in my mind, you face a problem that everybody faces. And it is one of the toughest things about the industry.
Yeah. And at least in this case, it was a good, you know, it was like, well, something good happened. So what's the cause? So that's a better problem to have than something bad happened. And what's the cause?
Definitely.
So the other thing I did was we held an event, which I'd never done before, and just, you know, talk about anxiety, like organizing parties and events, and like shout out to my the employee, my partner on this, who basically organized everything. But just getting organizing a kids party is difficult, you know, for me. So like having this event with, you know, 40 elected officials and all their staff and trying to pull it all off and get the right location and all this kind of stuff. So super, you know, kind of wild to do it. And I would say after that, you know, we did the event, I would qualify it as like pretty low success. Like I was glad, you know, I think it was worth trying. And like people there seemed happy. They got free food and, you know, drinks and stuff. And that was good. But it was like a couple $1,000s, and I don't think we got, you know, any new clients from it. would be my impression. We did invite people who were interested in, learning about it. So it wasn't just our current clients. It was like, you can bring a friend kind of thing. And some elected officials showed up, but I don't think we got any new clients from that. So, both of these were experiments, a couple $1,000s. And like of the two, I would say the notebooks seem to be, because now everyone carries the notebooks around with them, in the State House. So that seemed to be the successful one.
I mean, there's no arguing that swag is not a popular thing. So, I think the fact that, you in my mind, and I'm speaking as very much a person who does not know or understand anything about your industry, so is very willing to admit that I could be totally off. But it seems like you identified something that they might find useful in a notebook. You made something that people would want to carry around, so you made it nice. And I'm assuming your branding was on there?
So I chose to do a very light branding. So there was a gold foil thing of the State House, like covering the front. And then there was a embossed, like just the impression of our logo underneath it.
Cool.
So only the people. So it wasn't, and that was kind of a choice, sort of my own, maybe it's my own fear of like trying to like push too much logo stuff, but I just thought they would use it more if it felt like, my whole goal is to make it feel like our system is just a part of their work at the State House. Like it's almost like an official State House thing. So that was part of the thinking for that, was like, I don't want to make it,
No, I like that. And I mean, if it's something that people are going to carry around, and again, since you made something that is nice, people are going to stop them most likely and say, "Oh, that's nice. Where did you get that?"
Right.
And and that's the conversation. And it can be as simple, marketing can be as simple as that conversation starting somebody's interest in what you do. Of like, "Oh, you got it from this company. What do they do?" And then if you are building a product that is useful and you have people who are willing to talk about how much they enjoy it, I mean, you don't beat that ever with any other, no matter how clever your marketing can be, nothing will ever top somebody that uses your product talking about it to somebody else in a positive way. I mean, so if that notebook happens to be the conversation starter, like, there's definitely opportunities where that you could see return on that. And so I think, anyways, again, I obviously don't, I'm speaking completely as a person who does not know anything about it or has looked at any of your back end data or anything, but I, on a theoretical level, I can understand where that works, and I can see why why you might have gotten more business from that over an event, which it's always tough, because it's not to say that the event couldn't drive traffic, or drive signups to your product, but it is a tougher sell of what people are expecting and how those like more natural conversations are going to come up over time.
Yeah. And we sort of sold it as like a thank you to our clients, who are going to hold this event, and it's just going to be mostly our clients, and they're going to hang out and have a good time. And we didn't try to push anything. We gave them a little like folder of stuff. Well,
and that's, so that I'm glad you said that, because that puts a whole, in my mind immediately, that just puts a whole different spin on the purpose of the event. And then, so maybe it was successful in what you were actually trying to accomplish.
Right.
Because like not everything is going to be, not everything you do in a branding or marketing sense is necessarily going to be like the revenue driver, but you showing appreciation for your customers, getting to know them more, making sure that you're, a friendly face, has value that plays out, even if it doesn't show up as like, we ran this event and got, 10 more signups.
Yeah. Although I do remember that the very first thing you said when we started talking about marketing was that the whole purpose is to drive revenue and get customers. And if you're not doing that, then right? Did I hear that also?
You did. And yes, you called me out. And I now I have to backtrack on my own words. But yes, it is the main goal is to drive revenue. But I mean, should always be your main focus. But some of your potential revenue drivers might be a much longer time frame where it's not even worth considering them as revenue drivers in the moment. It's a tough sell.
No, happy customers is a good thing, and you can do that with more than just the product itself. Like an event like this may have, it may have helped some people kind of like just be kind of happy to be part of the community of using the system and stuff like that.
Well, exactly. And it might even have been, this is, again, tougher stuff to know for sure or justify, but it could have been somebody who was, it could be the difference between taking somebody from just being a user to somebody who is going to speak about your product. Or it might take somebody who was like considering looking at other options and then they go, you know what? I actually like this guy. I think I'm just going to stay. And you might not ever be able to get that information from it. And so my only suggestion from a marketing side, especially if you're, whenever you're working with like limited budgets, is you still have to do some of this stuff, but make sure you can justify it. It's just a different approach when, you've got 100 million in VC investment and when you're bootstrapping something yourself and like where you can focus your marketing dollars.
No, exactly. We are a very small, bootstrapped kind of company, at this point. So I think like that sort of consideration was a big part of it. Like after the fact, I was like, like we spent a couple $1,000s on each of these two things, and one of them just feels like it drove a lot more. So, I think it's like, not that it was a bad thing. It might have done some good stuff, but yeah, that's like a longer term thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that really, to just go to my early point of like that's why focusing on the revenue drivers is the important piece. And then as you grow, you can always add in some of these pieces, but it's so funny. Like I legitimately have, and I don't know if having coded some things, I feel like this relationship probably exists for many developers, but like there's such a strong love-hate relationship internally with me when it comes to marketing, because there are so many things that it can be and it can get applied to, and it's so there's just that combo of art and science to it, where it's like, you can get all the data in the world and think you're making all the right decisions only to realize that you were wrong. But it also doesn't negate the value of actually gathering all that data and trying to use it, And so it's just, but there is an art to it. I mean, you still need to, take risks and try things and trust your gut on, I think this might work. And like, I think people might be interested in this. So I'm going to do it. And then that's where the data comes in of like, can I then hopefully try and justify it after the fact?
Right. So let me see. Let me try and do some takeaways here for my sort of question on what is marketing and why do you do it. So,
I mean, I'm glad you started with like the easiest question. Obviously, like defining marketing is by far the easy one. Yeah.
So the big thing that I could apply to my stuff is spending probably more time. The most achievable thing right off the bat and sort of the intro is spending more time working on the data for who are our potential clients, and using that. And that can maybe even drive like the next step, which is like, how do we reach those potential clients? Is that an event? Is that a trade show? Is that what does that, maybe the data tells you that if they're all happen to be, for instance, going into the State House every Thursday, that's useful information.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. So from my side, I could spend some time on the data first and then just sort of see where that leads before going to the other steps. The other steps would be, starting to use that data to do some outreach, figuring out what that outreach looks like, whether it's, email, call, in person. And then from there, ideally, we don't have a separate sales team or something like that, but just mentally making those two different things, I think makes each one maybe a little easier. to manage, even if it's just me doing both, or my employee doing both. If the actual tasks are considered a little separately, that's actually probably helpful.
Yeah, because they do have slightly different expected outcomes, right? Like the goal of doing the data gathering and analyzing where your customers are, its main goal isn't like get new customers right off the bat. It's like inform where we're going to have those conversations, which then drives the customers. So if you keep those separate, then you can kind of be like, okay, I'm spending time figuring out who I'm going to talk to, and through that, I've decided I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and then you can kind of shut that off in your brain and say, okay, now I'm going to turn on my sales hat, and I'm going to try and reach these customers based on this information that I was able to get from my marketing department, even if it's just you.
Yeah. And that's like a skill, I think, that as a developer, I think there's a big overlap in the skill of one of the biggest things that I do is take large things that need to happen and break them down into smaller, manageable things. And that to me feels like what you're talking about, sort of dividing up the marketing and the sales and the parts of the marketing. I mean, that feels like the same skill as when I take on a big project and, I'm almost doing the same thing. I have these phases. I break the phases down into different things and then sort of, follow my path that I know works with some room for, moving stuff around if I need to, kind of thing.
Yeah. And
so
always
I like
having
that
in the same way that I would imagine when you're developing, you leave room for that experimentation area of like, this is the path I'm going down, but I have a feeling and I want to try this. And then if you back that up with, analysis afterwards of like, oh, did that work? Then you can always, adjust your path or add to what you're working on, on any given day. It's that little bit of experimentation goes a long way. Because if you don't have that, then you're definitely going to miss out on opportunities. But you made me think of when I was like 21, I think. I was working for a marketing agency, and I just remember coming up with this, and not to say that I was the first person. I'm sure many people had a very similar thought process. But I used to just go by this mentality of what I ended up dubbing the pro plan, which is just produce, review, optimize. And like, that is the mantra that I've tried to carry out through every company that I've worked with. Like
nice.
Whether it's a marketing strategy or a sales call, you do the thing with the best knowledge that you have. You review how it went, and then based on that information, you optimize it. And if I just find that is such a powerful way to do things, because you're never going to go into it being like, oh, I know that what I'm doing is exactly right, because you never will know for sure. But if you go in with like, I'm going to try this, I'm going to pay attention to what happened, and then I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love that.
It just compounds.
And okay, so wait, did you say that you were not sure if you came up with it?
Well, I know I came up with the specific pro plan and the 5-slide PowerPoint that I created for myself, but I don't know if I'm the first. I don't think I'm the first person that ever, came up with a system of doing something, reviewing it, and optimizing.
No, but the fact that it spells out pro is extremely good. Yeah, I love that. And so this segues nicely into where, my next thing. So the first part is me learning a little bit about marketing from you. And the next part is you learning some more about web programming and htmx from me. And I would say that like produce, review, optimize, like, I mean, this is the mindset of a developer also. And you need, just like you're talking about with the marketing, this is experimenting, trying something out. You cannot learn in theory. You can't read a book and learn how to. Obviously, once you've learned enough, a book is useful to kind of like reorient your ideas. But even then, you still need to try them out to see, if it works. So let me ask you, when let's say that you wanted to build something and we're going to use HTMX because this is an HTMX podcast. So let's just imagine that you wanted to learn, web programming, HTMX. You've said you've built just sort of an example so far.
Yep.
So what is your setup for development? And do you have a setup for development right now?
So in regards to setup, do you mean like do I have an IDE that I use? Do I what? Yeah,
I guess the whole thing,
or like an approach, I guess, to develop.
No, not an approach. Like just like the nuts and bolts of like if you sit down, if someone had said like I need you to make an HTMX like website or just like a front page right now, like what would that look like? What program would you open? Do you have like a web server running? What's your back end? Like what's your setup for programming?
Gotcha. Okay, so yes, so I do, and it's so funny because I mentioned it a little bit before, but this was always the biggest barrier for me, and finally learning how to kind of make this work was like, oh, the coding's actually not as hard.
Yeah, well, this is why I'm asking first, because this is the big barrier for people who are starting something like that. Okay, so so what do you got so far?
So I've just recently started, so I code on a Mac, and I just recently started using the Zed development IDE, which is, just, it's a text editor similar to like a VS Code or a Sublime Text.
Okay.
So it's like, it's kind of like a, but it is very fast. I found it's very lightweight. So I use that, and then because I'm on a Mac, I also just, I also have like a MySQL that runs in the background, and then if I'm launching a web server, oftentimes, depending on what it is, I'll just run the Python, the HTTP, whatever the heck it's called, just to start a quick local server.
Yep.
What is it called now? Now I can't think of it, but yes, so I kind of just do that. But then I've also, for example, when I've done some dev work for the company I'm working for, they have to use, the original when I started was on .NET 4. So I had to actually buy a Windows PC in order to be able to use it.
Yeah, man. Yep.
Yeah. But that's where we started. And so for that, then yeah, so that one what was I trying to say? That uses whatever the built-in one is for Visual Studio. Now, again, I can't remember. This is literally how I work in coding all the time. It's like I did this thing, and like I sort of remember how to do it. But I don't remember. But yeah, so as of right now, Zed. I would open up Zed. I would use. I would probably use the original the HTMX like Git repo for some of the examples, and then I would be able to build out it and run a server on my Mac is what I would do.
Okay, so run a server on your Mac, and you're talking about like a Python server?
Yes. So Python has like a built-in module.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I haven't
pretty well.
Okay, so that's good. As long as the main thing is that it works well. Like that's I think like my like biggest advice to anyone starting out is like it's not trivial to set up your development environment in a way that is like reliable, and so that you don't have to think about that part of it anymore. So if and when you program, are you programming in Python? Like, do you use like Django, or what do you sort of like use for? It's like just the Python part is just the server part.
Yeah. That's what I've been using with HTMX because so I guess I should be more clear. So yes, it uses Django. Oh my gosh, I'm so foolish on this stuff. I have never been good at picking one programming language to go with. So I've started multiple random HTMX projects with different backends to just try and
No, I think nothing wrong with that. I think that's good.
And so I'm like, yes, I have done one with using Django, and then I've also tried one with a like a JavaScript backend and doing like a using like Node, then like Django the most with HTMX specifically.
Okay. Okay. So, but if you had to sit down and do a hello world with HTMX, you feel like, what's your confidence level on like being able to do that, let's say in like 10 minutes, 5 minutes?
In like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, I would say my confidence level is a 6, and I would probably end up though using Django.
Okay. So you'd probably go for, you have like some command that you've like either got copied somewhere or you remember to start up the Django or the Python sort of server running.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I use fish shell, so I have some functions saved.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
So as long as you have that, I think it doesn't really matter what you use, as long as you can reliably, like, you don't want to have that be a barrier every time you sit down.
Yes.
And this is something that I've worked with and sort of trained, a bunch of developers at my previous job. And I think like getting this out of the way. So I use like Laravel, and the Laravel ecosystem, and they have a couple tools for this kind of thing, which are nice.
There was an article that an HTMX article about Laravel, wasn't there?
Oh yes. And that was, yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
No, and I mean it's a great combo, but mainly just because Laravel is set up to make things easy for just general sort of it's a PHP server, but they have this tool called Herd. They have a couple tools that are basically like an application you install, and as long as it's running, you have a server running. So you just need to have your project in the right folder, and then it's I'm not going to recommend you learn some new thing or something like that right now. If you have a way to run code and have it, so you can run Ajax and that, if you feel comfortable with that, if you feel good about that, then I wouldn't recommend changing it. But I think it's extremely important to have that sort of environment set up where you can just step into it without thinking about it.
I think I actually think that's really good advice, and I probably need to do that even more strictly with myself, because even just you talking about it, that is my biggest problem, is I cannot help myself. I just I want to go see what this does. It's the same reason why every device in my house, for some reason, can SSH into every other device. I don't do it. I don't ever do it, but I just thought it would be interesting to set up, and so I did.
Yeah. Well, so I feel like those kind of exploratory instincts are going to be extremely useful for you. So, I wouldn't want you to stop, trying out random setups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a value in having a default that you don't have to think about. So
I like that. I actually really like that, and I think you are very correct. Just thinking about how I approach it in general, that is a. Can I take us slightly off topic? That I think was also the big benefit of learning, the Lemonade Stand game I made was using a fantasy console called Pico 8, and you open up Pico 8. Inside it is your code editor, your music maker, your sprite editor, and everything is contained. So it's just like you open it and you start, and you can see within a minute you can see the first thing on screen, and it's amazing.
It's so good. It's so good to have that. And it's it will change your whole sort of attitude. It's like the mental step. It's like going to the gym or something like that, where it's if you think of all the things you have to do before you go to the gym, it just sort of stops your mind and your body from doing it. You're like, oh man, I have to drive there. I got to do this. I got to and it's no, okay, what if you just if you thought about working out, you were immediately dressed and in workout clothes, and you had your weights right there and stuff like that. And it was just that's the world of having an easy dev environment to work in. So, and I think what you were saying also about the Lemonade Stand feedback loop, where you immediately know once you program something, once you try something, you immediately see the results. That's huge too.
Yes.
And so this is why I'm a little bit, this is part of my sort of general, and I think it matches with the htmx concept, but I'm not a build process guy. And I know they can make build processes that are fast. This is like, Node and NPM, and every time you make a change, it compiles. And yes, they've made that fast. They've worked on that quite a bit. But the overall concept of needing to sort of have this like compile step and build step, and you do all these things, like just the more you can remove away from that, and just like you change a file, you go to the page, it's different, it's like, it's a beautiful thing.
No, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So
it's just funny. Sorry. Just the I never put it together until right now about, like, I always understood that I loved the fact that the Pico 8 system was closed and like had its limitations, and so it just got you to focus. I never really thought about it in terms of that I should make it, when I open up my editor, whatever I'm using, feel that same way. I don't know why that just never really crossed my mind, but 100% that makes sense and is something I want to go do.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's, if you don't, if maybe we can do a little bit of our own personal homework, and I'll do a little bit of marketing homework. I'm going to try to do, not a ton, because I don't want to spend too much time on anything because I am, we're both busy. I know this.
Yep.
But I am going to start thinking a little bit about the data. What does the data look like in my industry? If I were to, think of it in terms of marketing, maybe just my homework for myself will be to, if you think it's valuable,
definitely
in terms of getting better at marketing, is like just to think about the data and maybe have something to talk about in a future discussion.
No, I think that, at the end of the day, whether or not you end up using it in any of your marketing strategies, I guarantee you, just going through that process of really taking the time to identify, your audience and where they live, and trying to back it up with some insights will prove valuable to you.
Nice. And then, if you don't mind having some homework, my suggestion for you would be to, at random times over the next week or whatever, just like pretend you have an assignment of doing a hello world, some small example in HTMX. How quickly can you, from the time you have the idea to the time that the hello world exists, and how long does that take you, and what can you do to review and optimize?
So there you go.
What was it? Produce, review, and optimize. I mean, just like, if it takes too long, then something is a little off. Maybe it's just not, whatever your development environment. There shouldn't be any delay in the eventual. It takes a long time to get there. But eventually, your development environment should be set up so that there's no delay. So a hello world should be, trivial to start. And you want to try and do it over and over again, so you get that like muscle memory almost of like starting a project, making it happen.
No, I really like that. Yeah. No, I'm the guy that I have like every language installed on my computer, and like when I was using VS Code, like all the extensions to operate every single one. And it's like, I'm not even using any of them. They just are there because I felt the need to put them there. And if I think, pairing that back to like, this is what I'm going to use it makes so much sense. And it feels so foolish to not have put that together before.
Well,
so I like that. That's good homework. I'm going to work on that for sure.
All right. Sounds good. Well,
I know. I feel like I kind of took over most of the conversation today.
No, this is perfect. I thank you very much for joining and for talking and agreeing to come on. This has been extremely useful, I think, and this is exactly what I was hoping for. So
amazing! I
appreciate it,
and I appreciate you pushing me through my my anxiety to do it.
Oh yeah.
I don't mind being open and honest about the fact that I was terrified to get on and do this, which is weird because I can stand up at a trade show and talk to every single person that walks by. But there's something about this is like, oh my God.
Yeah, I think I'm the total opposite in terms of those things, because there's just some things. If I had to go and talk to a crowd of people, I'm not going to lie, that'd be pretty difficult for me.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe over time we're gonna, we might actually improve each other.
Yep. Marketing, development, life. All right.
Yes.
Sounds good.
Oh, fantastic.
All right.
Well, I appreciate your time and really thanks for having me on to talk to you. It was a lot of fun.
No, thank you.
Look forward to doing it again.
All right. Yep. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.